The following is a production of DallasCowboys.com and the Dallas Cowboys Football Club.
How about them Cowboys?
Yeah!
Go Cowboys!
Let's go, baby!
Are you ready for a break?
Yes.
Are you ready for a break?
Absolutely.
Ready for a break?
Yeah, and so much for that.
It's time for The Break on DallasCowboys.com.
We were on a break!
With Ambar Garcia, Brian Broaddus, Nick Harris, and Derek Eagleton.
It is Friday, July 26th, 2024, season 20, episode number 10. Welcome to the latest edition of The Break. We are presented by LG. LG is the world's #1 OLED TV brand for 11 years and counting. CY at lg.com/OLED Evo. Welcome back, crew. I got my crew here, Brian Broaddus, Amber Garcia, and the newest member of our show, Mr. Nick Harris. And great opportunity to have Nick introduce himself. For folks that don't know, obviously you've been working with DallasCowboys.com for quite a while now, but for those that may not be familiar with your work, tell them a little bit about what you do here and what you were doing before you got here, just so people know your background.
Yeah, I'll start with the context. I came here from the college football recruiting world. I worked in that space for about 4 to 5 years, working with Rivals 24/7 Sports, so reporting on a ton of college kids' recruitments, and so that was my big thing. So whenever you see a kid that gets drafted on draft night in the first round and he's a 2-star, you can come to me and be like, "Hey, you're dumb." So I was the guy that was putting the stars on the kids for the kids in the region, Texas, Louisiana, Arkansas, surrounding states. And then I had this wonderful opportunity to come work for DallasCowboys.com. My first day on the site was the first day of the draft in 2023. And it's been a lot of fun since then. Last season was my first full season, and now my first full season with you guys. Come on now, let's have some fun.
I'll tell you what, a trusted source and now a veteran of the draft show.
Yeah.
I'm really excited about getting to work with you here.
Absolutely.
And work with everybody once again. But your knowledge of the draft and how you helped us those 3 nights was incredible. So, thanks for all your hard work.
Hey, I appreciate it, man.
But we got to keep him grounded. He's still a rookie on this show.
Yeah.
So we got to keep, your feet on the ground. You can't get your head up there too big. But, yes, he's done you did a great job on the draft. Very impressive work. So regardless of being a rookie here, we're happy to have you.
Yeah, what's your food order for you got to get the wings?
Yeah.
What's the deal here?
Yeah, we were talking about hazing pre-show, so y'all find something for me to do. I don't mind. I'll take the rookie bait.
Well, for those that didn't watch Talking Cowboys, Nick was on Talking Cowboys last year and had one of the best episodes maybe that we've ever had across any of our podcasts when he decided he was going to eat something. What was it? It was something that was hot.
Yes,
extremely hot.
Isaiah Stanback and I made a bet that I unfortunately lost it, and he got to pick whatever hot sauce that he could find that was the hottest and have me eat it live on the show. And what people might not know about that, too, is I was battling a lot of sinus congestion that week and everything. So I was more worried about, my insides just emptying on camera. So I just completely forgot about the heat. It actually kind of psyched myself out, and it worked out for me.
Yeah, it was funny. That was one of the funnier segments I've ever seen. And, Brian, being on the fan, you're no stranger to eating bad stuff.
Yeah.
Just know we're not going to do that on this show.
Yeah,
I'm never going in on that. I'm not in on that at all.
I was wondering about that. I did the Hot Ones Challenge, if you've seen it on TikToks and stuff like that. And so instead, I just skipped all the way to, we did 8, 9, and 10. Zach Wolchuk, again, another draft show veteran. We just went ahead and did and found out that number 9 of the Hot Ones Challenge is actually hotter than 10. So we took little bits of steak and kind of rubbed it around, and you talk about opening you up, but if you're not used to doing things with heat, that could be a little of a daunting task.
Yeah, I could do heat. It's all the other stuff.
It's the other
you start
stuff,
eating the other kind of stuff. I'm just not. I can't do it.
Yeah.
All right, here we go. Let's talk a little bit of training camp. This is day 2, I guess, is what we'll call it, because day 1 yesterday was the first practice. We had the opening press conference yesterday, which is a little bit of a departure. Typically, we do that the first day we get out here, but had some time with Jerry and Steven and a little bit of Mike McCarthy. I don't know. He didn't talk a lot during that press conference, but I want to go around here, give you guys each an opportunity. Just talk about one thing that stood out to you from the press conference that you think is worth noting. Let's start with you, Brian.
Well, when I think about the press conference aspect, Jerry and Steve and Mike, they try to explain, it's kind of a State of the Union thing, and there were a lot of questions about the contracts and things like that. And so you kind of try and work your way through that. But when then you get to the practice part, which we're all out here for, that's the most enjoyable thing to me. You know, what's said at press conferences, you can learn and gain things and understand a little bit better. But to me, when we have the practices, and I just want to say what I saw just the first day of practice, we've talked about Tolbert and Brooks, the second wide receiver, third wide receivers. I thought the wide receivers got off to a really good start yesterday with no CeeDee Lamb on the practice field. But the competition, at least day one, you know, the mental toughness, the ability to fight through things in day one of practice, you know, I thought with Tolbert and Brooks, both those guys coming back to the ball, both guys making quality receptions, both guys running routes, I thought that was a really good start. A lot of questions about CeeDee Lamb not being out here, but the two receivers that were did a really nice job yesterday.
Well, going back to what was talked about during the press conference, and you mentioned CeeDee Lamb and the whole conversation with the contracts and everything that's happening there, you know, maybe I'm reading too much into things, but I thought it was interesting to hear the different responses. Obviously, very different situations versus CeeDee Lamb's contract and Dak's. Sorry. CeeDee, he's still on that rookie contract, so it's different. I believe my understanding is they could potentially even waive the fines or take care of the fines. It's different than Dak. Dak would have to be the one paying it and coming out of his own pocket.
If he were missing.
If he was missing. Yeah. That's my point. He's been present all throughout the offseason. He's been here since day one. He's shown up to everything that he has to show up for. But what I found interesting was some of the responses that I heard from Jerry Jones and even Dak when he spoke to the media as far as like where their situation is right now, that it could really go either way. Like, right. They both want to stay together. Dak wants to be here. They want to have Dak as their quarterback. But at the same time, they understand this is a business, and it seems like they would both could be potentially in a spot where they just part ways. Dak looks for money and what he wants somewhere else. And then the Cowboys, Jerry Jones talked about how there's so many times in his life with the team where he would want something, but they simply don't have the money, and this is a cap situation here. Yeah. So just very curious to see how far or what's going to happen in the end of this, because right now when people ask me, hey, what's really going to happen, I really don't know. It could literally go either way.
And I want to clarify something real quick. You mentioned that Jerry said that about not having the money. And I saw some fans kind of being like, whoa, wait, he's a billionaire. The thing you have to remember is when Jerry says something like that in the context of the Cowboys, it's not necessarily about how much money he has in the bank.
Right.
It's about the salary cap.
Never is.
And yeah, exactly. It's about the salary cap. And so the NFL has structure in place to make sure teams have to stick within that salary cap. And that's where it becomes a situation where you may want something, but there are always going to be salary cap ramifications that will, to some degree. Now, there are ways to work around some things, but there's still going to be some ramifications of the salary cap that you're going to have to adhere to.
Well, he said it before, too, like, hey, if I could give my own money and put it on here, he would in a heartbeat, like just pay out of his own pocket. But obviously the NFL doesn't work that way. You know what?
I think this, and I'm looking forward to, and hopefully we have Jerry Jones on 105.3 The Fan and get a chance to interview him. The question I want to ask is, if he had to go back in history, would he want to push for the salary cap the way he did? You know, he's an he at the time was, you know, thinking about the balance, the competitive balance of the league. Mm-hmm. And you look at him knowing the TV contracts, him knowing the salary cap, you know, he was one of the big proponents of that, of pushing for that, and to try and help the Green Bays, the Cincinnatis, the teams that might not have the spending power that the Cowboys, trying to make everything more competitive. And so I wonder now, it's kind of something he pushed really hard for, which we love the National Football League for that, for the competitive balance. But I wonder deep down inside if there's a time it's like, you know, like in Major League Baseball where you could just outspend somebody. Jerry Jones was kind of like push for something that's now a little bit something that's maybe hamstringing him a little bit.
Yeah, and you would think he would maybe have the foresight there, understanding where his financial situation, where it was at that time. What was that, 96, 97, whenever salary cap started to get instituted. So you would think that he would have to understand the ramifications of potentially having that. But that is an interesting question.
But you would think that also is why you would think he did it for the sake of the league.
He did it
knowing
for the
that
league.
It wasn't necessarily helping the Cowboys.
Yeah. There's things that Jerry Jones has made these other owners billionaires. You know, the Brown family, the
profit
Rooney
sharing
family.
is a big thing.
Yeah, everybody that's involved in the National Football League, they were thinking about, let's keep NFL properties and let's do this. And Jerry's like, no, let's go out and see what we can sign deals, American Express, Nike, things like that, to generate money. Jerry's shown these other owners how to operate business, but he also was fair about the whole thing with the salary cap. He could have completely outspent. We look, fortunately, the Texas Rangers win the World Series last year, but then you look at the teams, the Los Angeles Dodgers, the teams that have high dollar, high thresholds of being able to spend money, and sometimes it's not fair. But Jerry said, listen, I want to give Green Bay, Cincinnati, those opportunities to compete on the same level as the high dollar teams.
Yep. Yeah. To your point, Amber, about Dak's potential number and what
I think they're
look
comfortable.
like.
I think both sides
so?
are comfortable with
what that number will be.
No, maybe not what the number is, but that there could be a parting of the ways here.
I see what you're saying. Yeah, I understand. I told somebody yesterday, this was before the presser actually, I was about 70% sure that I think Dak would be a Cowboy in 2025. I think after yesterday with that press availability and Dak talking as well, maybe that came down to like 65.
Sure.
So
it did drop though in your mind. It did drop a little
not
bit,
significantly, but there was some things said that make you kind of think about some things. But I think for me that the two things that really stood out for me yesterday and the entire availabilities. One, Jerry Jones had mentioned, hey, whenever we look at these three contracts, talking about CeeDee Lamb, Micah Parsons, Dak Prescott, CeeDee and Micah, they can keep those guys and extend those out with franchise tags for 3 more seasons if they wanted to. Now, obviously, there would be a lot that goes in and gets involved with that. I mean, CeeDee's already holding out, and we're in year 1 of that potential layout. Dak Prescott is a free agent next offseason, regardless.
Right.
So, and Jerry mentioned that, and it made me wonder. We've kind of been under the impression for the last 2 to 3 months, as CeeDee did not show up for OTAs, as he did not show up for minicamp, that the order is going to be CeeDee, Dak, Micah.
Right.
Kind of makes you wonder if it even could be Dak, CeeDee, Micah, because they still need Dak's number to understand what they're going to work with CeeDee and Micah. I mean, at the end of the day, that's going to be their biggest price tag. Like, do you go and buy the house before you go and buy the car, or do you go and buy the furniture before you go and buy? Like, you have to figure out what you're going to get your ducks in a row. And I think with that, Dak makes the most sense to get done first, but I don't know. This is going to be a weird time. It's going to be a really weird time. And I think being here at training camp gives these two sides an opportunity to sit down a little bit more often. I mean, we saw it last year with Trayvon Diggs, Malik Hooker, Terrence Steele. All of those deals were able to get done around this time. So, what kind of happens this time around? And then you worry about the next wave. And that was the second thing that kind of stood out to me is, we're talking so much about these big three. Whenever those are done, then we're talking about DeMarcus Lawrence, Zach Martin if he decides to come back, Osa Odigizua, Deron Bland's coming around the corner too. That's going to be a big contract.
Tyler Smith.
Tyler Smith's coming up.
Tyler Smith, Jake Ferguson. I mean, it never ends. Brandon Aubrey. I mean, we could throw in the kicker.
That's the beauty of how well they've drafted.
That's
Absolutely.
exactly
100%.
right. And to me, they've been a little bit unfortunate that the contracts haven't staggered. They've all seemed to come at the same time, so that's a little bit of something they're working with as well.
What's forgotten is they've already paid Trayvon Diggs, so it's like that's another one that was just like a great draft pick. You got him in the second round. He turned out to be one of the better cornerbacks in the league. So I think I'll also throw this out, and as you guys were talking about what happened yesterday and kind of what we saw, one thing that was interesting to me, and I would be interested to see if you guys saw the same thing, but Dak has always been someone I thought handled himself really well with the media. Yesterday, it felt to me like he was even more, I guess, comfortable in his skin is how I would probably put it. He just felt very, very relaxed and very comfortable. And some of the things he was saying, I think, kind of made me think that even more. I think becoming a father, I know sometimes it has a way of kind of clarifying life for you. When you reach that point, that stage of life. But I just think in general, he was talking about the business of the NFL. And I think he's really resigned to the fact of, we'll just see where this goes.
Right.
And I'm going to play this year the very best I can play it. I'm going to give my very best. I'm going to keep trying to improve every single day. But I'm comfortable that whatever happens, I'm good with it. And I can move on and have a great rest of my career in whatever way that shows itself.
Well, he's seeing quarterbacks around the league that he's better in than getting paid. He sees there's going to be opportunities for him.
And he mentioned a couple of quarterbacks,
yeah,
too.
I mean, all of a sudden, if down in Jacksonville with Trevor Lawrence and guys like that, all of a sudden getting paid, you got to feel like, okay, play the game. Who would you rather have, Trevor Lawrence or Dak Prescott? And I think a lot of teams would say, well, give me Dak Prescott right now as my guy. So I think he has to be comfortable with that feeling and knowing that Todd France has done an incredible job of work. He's got Dak back to the table really quick.
Yeah.
And I kind of feel like if they did a deal done here, it might be get him back to the table quick again. They've played this very, very well. But I also want to say this, though. I kind of feel like if I was Stephen Jones, I would say this to Dak Prescott. I would say, listen, you're going to win this negotiation with us. How bad do you want to win it? How bad do you want to? And I don't know if it's possible, but I would have brought him in or have the opportunity. Stephen Jones even talked about he's had communications with Dak. I would have thought about bringing him in and pointing out, like, listen, if you take 60 from us, this is what we're going to look like. Just show him a presentation of what the team potentially could look like and kind of work down from that. But you're going to tell him, hey, you're going to win this negotiations because we have no leverage on you. The only leverage we have is you want to potentially be here. That's the only leverage they have. So to me, I would walk him through what this team could look like at certain levels of this contract. If you want to give us a break, we might be a little bit better in the long run. He doesn't owe them anything. It was Tank Lawrence that said, hey, that's not my problem. Right. That's their problem. But at this point in time, you really want to try and partner with Dak here and say, okay, you're going to win this, but at what level do you want to really win this? And I think that's something that, that maybe could open Dak's eyes a little bit to the situation that they're in.
But I also think to that same point, he's going to win wherever he goes.
Sure, but if he wants to be here, I think you walk him through what that spreadsheet's going to look like.
And the casualties that'll probably
okay. We're not going to be able to. You don't want to be throwing to guys like me out there. You want to be throwing to CeeDee Lamb and potentially whether it's Brooks or Tolbert or something, or somebody we can go out and get. I think, or Jake Ferguson for that matter. Do you want to be throwing to others, or do you want to throw to Jake Ferguson? Yeah. That's how you got to kind of look at this.
What was interesting for me, one of the statements that Dak made, we're going to take a break here in just a second, but one of the statements that Dak made that I think could complicate that, Brian, that you were just mentioning, is he said, at one point he said, I feel like I have a responsibility to the other quarterbacks in the NFL and to other players in this locker room. And what that said to me is this contract is just as much about him getting paid as it is in setting the market for the guys that come after him.
Right.
And that's one of the things that you have to remember. When you're talking about a salary cap, every player should feel like, if they're thinking about it from a global standpoint, the higher they can push the number, that helps the next person behind them push the numbers even higher. That creates more opportunity for people. So if he's thinking about it like that, then on the one hand, he could be looking at it like you say, where there's an opportunity to maybe help the team out a little bit. But on the other side, he's like, I have a responsibility to these other quarterbacks.
Right.
And the more I can push that number, then the next quarterback that gets signed after me can push it even higher, and we all help one another to be able to raise that bar.
Well, what happened, though, too, if you look at the NFL draft, and Sam Bradford was the last one. Remember, these quarterbacks got massive contracts without even playing it down. And what did the league do about it? No, slotting. Here we go. So, responsibility to the others, but also how about a responsibility to your team? And that to me is, I go back and look at a Tom Brady. And Tom Brady was married to a lady who was a $50 million a year model. So it's a little bit easier to do that when you have some security like that. But to me, I think you also, Patrick Mahomes. Here's Patrick Mahomes has won a couple of Super Bowls. Contract was a little bit responsible for trying to help the team along as well. So, again, it's just how much, responsibility to other players, but how much of a responsibility to making sure that your team is the best around you.
Well, also what Derek said about becoming a father, I think that really, really changes your perspective on everything. I mean, my son is 3 years old, and now I see life completely different. I look for myself and my pocket and my money completely different than I did before. You both have kids in college. You know what that's like.
It's expensive.
Yeah, it is. But to that, not you, Nick, Derek. But my point is, it's one of those things that, hey, why should I sacrifice my pocket to help the team where I could potentially make so much more? Who's to say I'm not going to get injured? Who's to say, you don't know what's going to happen. So at the same time, I understand if he was, if he does end up moving away from this, because at the end of the day, you got to look for what's going to benefit you the most. And I know that might sound selfish, but at this point in his career, sometimes you do have to do what's best for your own business.
No, there's no question, but you also $60 million a year is going to put a huge responsibility on him. And now it's not.
Oh, yeah.
And now it's
It
not
doesn't
about.
affect him. Yeah,
it's
that's
about
true.
now.
Yeah.
It's about you. And if you think the criticism on weekly shows on ESPN and national radio and all that is bad now, wait till you make $60 million a year and you're playing with guys like me out here, and it's not working, and the team is not as good. Then all of a sudden, then the realization, I helped myself. I've got generational wealth. Great. But I'm a quarterback now known on a 6-11 football team every year. That in itself, nobody wants to go out here and lose. Yep. And the Cowboys have proven outstanding players get it done. Players that then they draft well, that's what gets wins here. That's what gets division wins. It just hasn't translated into playoff wins yet, but that responsibility soon. He makes $60 million a year. Now that responsibility goes on him even stronger than before.
Last season would have to be the standard if $60 million is the number.
Yep.
Right? And that's going to have to continue to get better as time goes on.
All right, we're going to take our first break. We're going to come back and we'll get some camp observations. I want to hear a little bit about
Jump
what you
the gun
guys.
on you. Sorry
No, it's
about
all
that.
good. We got that. We're going to get to some other topics.
Follow the rules,
and
Brian.
we'll do that when we come back. This is DallasCowboys.com radio.
Todd thought it would be secure to jog in the cheetah savanna. Todd believed the big cat repellent he bought online was reliable. And now, Todd is trying to be faster than this cheetah that can run 80 miles per hour. But the good news is, Todd has AT&T 5G that is fast, reliable, and secure. And he learned the best thing to do is stop running and toss her the backpack with the beef stew. AT&T 5G. Fast, reliable, secure.
5G requires compatible plan and device. 5G may not be available in your area. See att.com/5G for you for details.
If you can't be at the stadium, there's no better way to watch your Cowboys than on an LG OLED Evo TV. That's because everything you see is more lifelike. Every play, every hit. I mean, you might as well be on the sidelines. That's how clear it is. It's all thanks to LG's legendary technology. Perfect black, over 8.3 million self-lit pixels. No one comes close. LG OLED Evo is the best TV in the game for a reason. See for yourself at lg.com/OLED Evo.
Don't put off getting your oil change, Dallas. Take 5 Oil Change, a proud partner of the Cowboys, is faster than you think. There's no appointment needed and no waiting room. Yep, you heard that correctly. Take 5 is so fast, you don't even have to get out of your car. You can take advantage of Take 5's fast, friendly, and simple service at any of their locations across the Dallas area. And remember, at Take 5, you stay in your car because they're faster than you think. Take 5, the official oil change of the Dallas Cowboys.
If you shout, "How about them Cowboys?" you have that undeniable passion that's the heart of Cowboys Nation. And if you like to drink Dr. Pepper, you love the unique blend of its 23 flavors. Together, your one-of-a-kind fandom paired with the one-of-a-kind taste of a delicious ice-cold Dr. Pepper is the game day lineup that can't be beat. Better yet, gather your Cowboys and Dr. Pepper fan friends to watch the next game and crack open a delicious ice-cold Dr. Pepper for everyone. The wins will be even tastier. It's a Pepper thing.
Life doesn't stop when the economy is uncertain. The market might not care you have a wedding to plan or a kid to put through school. And inflation doesn't know you've got a family to feed. But Bank of America does, and is here to help. With digital tools to help you save and local experts nearby, you can keep life moving forward the way you need it to. Bank of America. What would you like the power to do? Learn more at bankofamerica.com. Bank of America N.A., member FDIC, equal credit opportunity lender.
Back to the break.
LG OLED Evo is the best TV in the game, but don't take our word for it. Digital Trends said that LG OLED G4 has the best picture quality they've ever seen. Wow, this is tough. See for yourself
We're okay.
at lg.com /OLED Evo for your needs there. How about that, man? That is.
You sound like me trying to
We
speak
got
English.
it. We got it.
That is OLED Evo.
Yeah, it's lg.com /OLED
Evo.
That's OLEDEVO.
That is
They're
a
the
lot.
sponsor of our show, by the way.
They are a great
LG.
sponsor,
Yeah.
and so I'm sorry when I'm reading this read, I read it one time through, and I'm like, boy, this is really going to be tough.
Yeah.
So here we go.
We got it.
Get you one.
We got it. Go get an
only up from
LG
here. It's only up
OLED.
from here.
OLED
Yeah.
Evo. Yeah.
OLED Evo TV.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Go get you one.
Welcome back. It is the second segment of the break. We're live from Oxnard, California. I just thought about something. Did I say we were at the SWBC Mortgage Studios earlier?
I don't know.
I didn't catch it if you did.
wasn't listening.
Yeah.
All right.
They're good sponsors,
hope
too.
I didn't mess that up. Anyway, we're out in Oxnard, California. As you can see, it's a
Did
beautiful
you say
day out here.
blockchain? Did you get the blockchain stuff?
No, I was about to get to
Okay,
that. But
get
yeah,
the.
it's the second
After
segment.
you watched me just kind of just like I was a Bourbon Street drunk walking
Hey,
down the
man,
road there.
You've had a lot of practice at that back in the day, I'm sure.
Yeah,
when
it
you were-
was, yeah.
When you were an LSU student.
Yeah.
But no, we appreciate you guys joining us. We're out here in Oxnard, California. Beautiful Oxnard, California. We'll be out here for a month. And so it's going to be, we have lots of shows out here. Just for those that don't know, we're alternating days. So we'll be every other day. We'll be doing a show every other weekday, alternating with Talking Cowboys, which is also at the 9 o'clock hour here at Pacific time, 11 back home at Central time. But we'll be doing that throughout training camp. And then once we finish training camp and get into the season, we'll go back to our normal every day. You can expect to see us Monday through Friday, every day of the week, getting you guys ready for the Cowboys games each week. This segment brought to you by blockchain.com.
Ding.
All right, let's jump in. Let's get some observations from practice. What did you guys see yesterday, Brian? You gave us a good, astute observation on the wide receivers, which, by the way, I love to see, and I actually had the same observation. I think we all did.
Good start for those two.
Absolutely, and they need it. They need a start, and they're going to get plenty of opportunities out
Right.
here as long as CeeDee Lamb is out. Let's go to you, Amber. What's an observation that you saw yesterday at practice?
Okay, so my top guy that caught my eye the most yesterday was Trey Lance. He when he was out there on the field, and he didn't have like a perfect practice. He made a couple of bad throws, but just in general, his demeanor, he looks like a starter. Like his vibe and how he walks on the field, he looks very confident. He looks like somebody who would have experience, somebody who's there and has everything under control. So just his demeanor overall, very different from Cooper Rush. You know, Cooper Rush, he's more like calm and just kind of, he's not very out there, his personality and how he leads when he's on the field. But there were a couple of times where I had to look twice and make sure that wasn't Dak as far as how he would carry himself. So for those that like to ask, hey, what about Lance? And is he a possibility? How's he looking? This is a very important year for him. I believe this is his last year on the contract, and the Cowboys do have to figure out what's going to happen with him as well.
That's par for the course for this organization. Have everybody on their last year.
Everybody, make it happen this year. You know, so we still don't know what's going to happen with him. We don't know what's going to happen with Dak and how that can play. Obviously, they're going to play into each other somehow while they're figure out, you know, if they're going to try to keep developing him and give him a contract. But to me, he looked pretty impressive on day one as far as, like, just doesn't look like someone that's completely new.
I will throw out one thing before we go to you, Nick, on Trey Lance. For me, I'm going to need to see a little more decisiveness and a little better accuracy. And consistency in that, right? I think yesterday, I see what you're talking about. There is a way that he carries himself that looks like, okay, I think he mentally is where he needs
promising.
to be. Yes, but from the standpoint of what I've seen him do on the field, that's why I got to see more of the decisiveness, the accuracy, the consistency. Those are the things I think he's got to show out here at training camp this year.
Yeah, you could tell he wasn't confident in San Francisco because when he came into the building around this time last year, give or take a few weeks, you could see that confidence was shot. That confidence has slowly been built off the field over the course of the last year, and I think that's been the big thing for him to focus on, is just being comfortable in who he is as a player and as a guy in the locker room once again, and we're starting to see that now. Like, he's got some guys that he relies upon in the locker room, that he relies upon whenever he's working with the second and third team, but I need that confidence to translate between the lines, and I didn't quite see that yesterday. I had mentioned on DallasCowboys.com yesterday that, you know, he struggled pushing the ball downfield. He hesitated to do that. Most of his stuff was just check downs, 5 yards and in between. And Cooper Rush, he had a couple of errant throws too. I said the slight advantage would go to Rush from me today, but it wasn't in particularly winning fashion. So that was my initial standout. And then also looking at Cooper Beebe, this is a very interesting center battle. I think it's going to be way more interesting than people may realize, just because of the work that Brock Hoffman has been putting in to potentially be that starter. Also, given the context of Brock Hoffman coming in and starting 2 games last year and playing really well in those 2 games, but Cooper Beebe coming in with all of this knowledge, all of this, all of these knacks to be an interior offensive lineman, but also playing a new position. Beebe really struggled with the shotgun snapping. It was really tough. But I think whenever you kind of get used to seeing him at camp and he gets a preseason game under his belt, I'll be really excited to see what this battle looks like after the Rams game, because I think it's going to be really fascinating.
Did I see this right? Was TJ Bass also taking some reps yesterday at center?
So he's technically in that mix as well.
Yeah, I thought so, yeah.
Which is also an interesting layer to this entire deal, because there's technically 4 guys competing for the starting center spot. It's Brock Hoffman, Cooper Beebe, TJ Bass, and Dakota Shepley. And so all 4 of those guys are going to get reps. They're going to get opportunities, not only here in Oxnard, but in the preseason as well. I think ultimately it does come down to Hoffman and Beebe, and I think Bass is a guy that, like, hey, we're going to get you as many reps as we can. In case injury does pop up, we want you to know what you're doing. Yeah. But I think he's the right guard of the future, and I think they're banking on that to happen whenever Zach Martin does decide to call it a career, or he decides to leave. The right guard of the future over Beebe, I believe so. I mean, again, you would have to kind of understand what would happen after training camp here, because if Hoffman does win that center job, then yeah, you're right. That is a right guard battle whenever Zach Martin decides to depart Dallas. So it's a good problem to have. They're starting to have a lot of depth there in the interior offensive line that they can play with. How strong will that depth be? That's what these 4 weeks are going to tell us.
I think we all need to keep an eye on what's going on. I think the best part of this Dallas Cowboys offensive line is their interior guys.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think what you need to keep an eye on is how that plays out, and if they all look very, very competitive and either anybody could start. Because if something were to happen with Guyton, say at left tackle, or they were not totally, Chumadoga is the left tackle right now as we drill. I mean, we'll have a lot of practices out here and stuff, but I would keep an eye on that, because to me the fallback position is Tyler Smith moves to left tackle, and now you put one of those, the BB, the Bass, somebody in there at the left guard spot, and then you go to battle that way. So a lot going on with that group.
There's a 0% chance that if Tyler Guyton is not ready to go by week 1 in the coaching staff's eyes, that they are playing Chumadoga.
There's
a 0%.
To me,
right?
this is where I go back to my days of working in player personnel, and that with coaches, and sometimes, and especially in this organization, the coaches are looked at as, okay, let's take their word for it. And so now you're thinking, I was thinking, okay, I'm okay with Brock Hoffman. I get that. I understand what's going on there. But you drafted Guyton with a reason, for a purpose. Yeah. You addressed that. You said, hey, this is our guy. So if Mike Solari all of a sudden gets away with playing with Chumadoga at left tackle, it's going to make me in the personnel department question, okay, why did we do this? Why didn't we take Barton, the center from Duke, or some other thing that if you're going to just go ahead and play that guy, then, but I think that Guyton has to show that he can't do it, initially. I think there's going to be a learning curve there. Just how steep of a learning curve are we about to see?
And I don't want it to be a dunk on Chumadoga either.
I've
always said I think he's a better interior guy.
But they addressed it. They addressed it. They drafted a tackle.
Yeah. I just think he's played out of position. That's purely what I feel there.
Yeah.
All right, we're going to go ahead and take our final break. When we come back, we're going to get into some storylines, and this is actually going to span this show and the next show. I just want to run through all the different storylines because there's so many.
Wrong show.
We might need 3 shows. Yeah.
Wrong show.
Yeah, we might need what? Huh?
Wrong show. That's another show.
What's another
storylines?
Actually, show. I got on my storyline T-shirt. Y'all want to so we're gonna start going through some of these storylines and hit some. We've already talked about a couple of them, but we're gonna go through some of these storylines and get your opinions on some of these things, and really just set the table for our audience, so that as they enter training camp along with us, they know exactly what we're following every day and what they should be paying attention to, because these are going to be the things that matter once we get to the first game in September. Let's take our final break. We'll come back. DallasCowboys.com radio.
It's the official men's skincare brand of the Dallas Cowboys, Jack Black. And right now, Cowboys fans can get 15% off their $75 order. Plus, because every deal needs a playmaker, your order will include a free 5-piece skincare set and free shipping. The Jack Black Playmaker is 4 of Jack's favorites and a full-sized intense therapy lip balm. Make a play for the playmaker at getjackblack.com/Cowboys with the code CowboysVIP. That's getjackblack.com/Cowboys with the code CowboysVIP.
They say champions are remembered, but legends are never forgotten. United Ag and Turf offers a winning lineup of John Deere equipment built to tackle any challenge on and off the field. Legendary John Deere tractors, combines, residential mowers, commercial mowers, compact construction equipment, Gator utility vehicles, and a full line of golf and sports turf equipment. United Ag and Turf, the official Ag and Turf equipment supplier of the Dallas Cowboys. Visit UnitedAgAndTurf.com to find a location near you.
If you can't be at the stadium, there's no better way to watch your Cowboys than on an LG OLED Evo TV. That's because everything you see is more lifelike. Every play, every hit. I mean, you might as well be on the sidelines. That's how clear it is. It's all thanks to LG's legendary technology. Perfect black, over 8.3 million self-lit pixels. No one comes close. LG OLED Evo is the best TV in the game for a reason. See for yourself at lg.com/OLED Evo.
From the field to the festivities, Lucchese embodies the essence of luxury and tradition. Handcrafted with meticulous precision, each pair offers unmatched comfort and style. Stand tall while you're tailgating or cheering in the stands with the Dallas Cowboys collection by Lucchese. Shop the collection today at the Lucchese store at the Star in Frisco or online at lucchese.com. Lucchese, the official boot of the Dallas Cowboys and Dallas Cowboys cheerleaders.
Todd thought it would be secure to jog in the cheetah savanna. Todd believed the big cat repellent he bought online was reliable. And now, Todd is trying to be faster than this cheetah that can run 80 miles per hour. But the good news is, Todd has AT&T 5G that is fast, reliable, and secure. And he learned the best thing to do is stop running and toss her the backpack with the beef stew. AT&T 5G. Fast, reliable, secure.
5G requires compatible plan and device. 5G may not be available in your area. See att.com/5G for you for details.
Back to the break.
Well, this is a pretty simple one, guys. AT&T, the official sponsor of the Dallas Cowboys. That's what it says on the sheet.
Good job.
How about that? That's it.
Is that it?
That's it.
Oh,
Unless
wow.
you want me to just shuffle through this LG OLED Evo read again.
No, we're good.
We're
we know
good?
about that. We know about that at this point. I think
it says
we're
here on
good.
my little sheet, it says AT&T, the official sponsor of the Dallas Cowboys.
Well, thank you, AT&T. We
That's
appreciate
it.
you.
Yeah.
All right.
all
Let's
we
jump right back in. We got a final segment here on the break, live from Oxnard, California, and let's get into some storylines. I think the biggest storyline that we all can agree is CeeDee Lamb and his absence here at training camp. The question I have for you guys is, how much do you think this sets him back? He obviously is a veteran player, but there is also, even with veteran players, there is the timing aspect that you want to be able to kind of work back up between the quarterback and the receivers. How much do you think this sets him back?
I think this is an interesting one just because I'm kind of on both sides of the coin here. Initially, whenever asked this question around OTA minicamp time, I look at it and I see, okay, there's still opportunities for Dak and CD to get together off the field, whether it be at Dak's home, at a random training facility away from campus, and kind of be able to still get that rhythm down, still be able to find that connection between the two before they get out to Oxnard, or before it's just Dak that gets out to Oxnard. But we hear Dak, and he's talking yesterday, and he took that trip with the receivers and tight ends and running backs that he does every single year. And this year, all quarterbacks came too. So it was Cooper Rush and Trey Lance. They all, 18 of them, went up to Portland, Oregon, trained at the Nike campus for 3 days, and they were able to get a lot of really good work in. And you could really see that translate onto the field last year whenever they did that trip, and you're starting to see that early on here as well. CeeDee Lamb wasn't at that trip. So I think that's a little bit of an interesting tidbit, because how much will CD have to catch up when he does get here? Because that will have to happen. There will be a ramp-up phase for him, whether he starts tomorrow or he starts in week 1 practicing. And we saw it a little bit with Zach Martin whenever he got integrated in Oxnard last year. So I think concern level, I'd put it at maybe like a 3 to 4 out of 10, but I still think it is there, and you still have to build that connection. You have to build that rhythm with your quarterback. But granted, I think the pros and the positives are he's coming off the best season in franchise history for a wide receiver. His quarterback was second in MVP voting last year, and those two have played together for, 3-4 seasons. So I think building that connection over time is really, it'll allow it to be a lot more seamless than it has been in recent years. And aside from this leaf blower over here, I think they'll be fine whenever they get going, whenever
Welcome
time
to the
comes.
show.
Yeah, exactly.
Go ahead.
Well, I was gonna say I tend to be a little extremist, if that's the right word.
Extremist, is that what you said?
Extremist,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah.
In the same family.
Yeah, same thing.
But yeah, I tend to exaggerate those things a little bit because we've seen it before where you don't have the same type of. It takes a while. We've seen games. Sorry, I got completely distracted. We've seen games where it took them a while to get in sync, and we've seen that to be a problem before. And this is no. I'm not saying anything bad about CD. I think he's still preparing. He's still practicing. We are doing his own workouts. We heard Dak Prescott talk about him not being a problem and he's gonna be okay. We heard Brandon Cooks, he mentioned him as well, saying, hey, he's doing everything he needs to do at this moment to stay in track and be ready to go as soon as he comes here. But how many times have we seen it in games where the receivers and Dak are kind of not in sync, and how long? I don't have time to wait week 1, week 2, week 3, week 4 for them to get going. I need them to get going right away. And this is not a Zach Martin situation, very different position, very different experience, all of that. So I think it is extremely important for him to be here now. However, at the same time, just like you mentioned, those other younger wide receivers, great to see them getting those extra reps and being able to kind of keep growing, as opposed to, if CD, that takes away a little bit from their own time out here. But I do think it's very important for him not to be here.
Yeah, training camp practice is a lot different than working in Houston, but Nick was talking about, throwing in the Dak yard and all that stuff that they've done. And I don't ever worry about that part. I think they have an understanding of being together long enough that where somebody is going to be, where they're, the routes are going to end and all that. I just worry about all of a sudden, if safety misses the first week of camp and then they do get it done, now you're behind that way, just from the conditioning aspect. And CeeDee Lamb is a very well-conditioned athlete, but training camp running is different than running in Houston or Frisco or wherever else. That just the practice pace is different, and you always worry about you worry about the soft tissue things. And this organization has had a little bit of a history at times where people come in and then all of a sudden you get those soft tissue injuries, and then now you're set back. And then if you miss 10 days, now you're closer to the season, and now if you're hurt, then there's questions about will you be ready against week 1 against the Browns. Those are the only things that I worry about.
Do you think it should affect negotiations, knowing that this is such a and I hesitate to use this term, but an all-in season? And what I mean by that is, like, literally there are a bunch of people around here, players, coaches, who this is the last hurrah. Like, they don't have future deals.
Right.
This is like, let's see what this year becomes. With all that on the line, do you think that should affect negotiations from the standpoint of the Cowboys' point of view, to say, hey, maybe we ought to give a little more to go ahead and get this done, knowing so much is riding on it?
I don't know how you guys feel about it, but Jerry Jones was talking about seeing more leaves off the tree.
Yeah.
I think you have an understanding of some of these deals that have already been done. And so you have an idea. Play the game of where does CeeDee Lamb fit in the receivers that have been extended or the receivers that are trying to get extended. And so that's where, to me, that's where that number comes into. I was talking to somebody in the league, another cap guy, and usually it's like, oh, well, the Hills contract is, they say it's $30 million. Well, in actuality, it's really $27.5. And then Adams' contract is actually $24.5. It's not a $30 million deal. But then I asked about the Jefferson contract, and they're like, no, that's a $35 million contract.
Straight up.
It's a straight up $35 million contract. So, to me, if you have an understanding or an idea of where these numbers are going to fall, then I've always found this with Stephen Jones. If you don't try and reset the market with him, he'll deal with you. He'll deal with you in a way of like, okay, come in right under this number. If I'm not resetting the market, then, and I think that's where maybe Lamb and his group needs to think about. Don't think about the Jefferson number. Think maybe at or slightly below that number.
Yeah.
And if you're satisfied with that, then you're good to go. And I think they will deal with you on that way.
I think from my understanding, looking at the negotiations and just kind of how things have played out, I see CeeDee Lamb and his representation being comfortable being under that.
Yeah, I do
number.
too. Yeah.
I think the semantics are going to come in the length of the deal and the guaranteed money. I think that's where you're going to have all these conversations back and forth. As Stephen Jones said in his walk-off yesterday, that they have exchanged numerous deals with CeeDee Lamb.
Yeah.
So they're going through the very minute details of this entire thing. I think the per year, I think maybe there's a little bit too much importance being put on that.
Right.
I think it's the length and the guaranteed money, because both of those two things, they can make him the quote-unquote highest paid, just depending on how you look at it.
But to that point, was it interesting to you guys that Steven mentioned yesterday in the press conference that talking about him and Micah both want to be the highest paid non-quarterbacks in the league, which kind of it jumped out to me because I wouldn't have thought that necessarily CD and his representation would be looking for highest paid non-quarterback in the league kind of money, or wide receiver even kind of money. But according to Steven, maybe that is what might be a part of this equation.
Yeah, it's fascinating. Yeah. It's a fascinating ordeal because what does that mean at the end of the day? Because there's three different markers you can look at. You can look at the annual contract value. You can look at the guaranteed money, total money. You can look at a bunch of things, and especially once you crack it down with state taxes and things like that, they can make the negotiation fib a little bit and be like, hey, this is the highest paid non-quarterback contract in the league, even though ESPN might not say it. So. Yeah.
All right, that's a wrap for us. We'll be back on next Tuesday.
That was fast.
It was. Next Tuesday, we only got to one storyline, and we got plenty more to get to. So
life is fun when you're having fun. It's short when you're having fun because I'm around. Come on now.
Welcome to the show, Nick. It was a good first show.
I'll work on that read for you guys next time.
It was just the first one, Brian. We got time.
There's a lot going on here with that read.
We got a lot to figure out. Yeah. All right, we'll be back with you guys next Tuesday. Till then, for Brian Broaddus, Amber Garcia, Nick Harris, I'm Derek Eagleton. This has been The Break, live on DallasCowboys.com radio.
This has been a production of DallasCowboys.com and the Dallas Cowboys Football Club.
How about this, Cowboys? Yeah!